All right, solutions per problem 6 for Math 95. So you're given this equation right here and asked to find all solutions to it. Okay, basically when you're trying to solve an equation, find the solutions, what you want to do is isolate x, get the x all by itself. In this case, there's two x's, so that'll present a little bit of a problem. But a more immediate problem is this square root right here. That makes things difficult to deal with. So what we're going to do when we're solving this problem is we're first going to try to get rid of this square root. So I got 15 minus 7x, and then on the outside of the square root I have this plus 3 is equal to 2x. So I could subtract 3 from both sides of the equation to get here. And the advantage of this form is now I've isolated the square root. So I can get rid of the square root if I just square both sides of the equation. So if I square both sides of the equation, what I would get is this mess. Okay, again, my goal is to solve for x. It'd be a little bit easier to get to because I don't have a square root here, but there's an x here and an x here that's kind of buried within this square root. So what we're going to have to do is expand out this binomial. We're going to have to do 2x minus 3 times 2x minus 3. What that ends up being is 4x squared minus 12x plus 9. Maybe off to the side I'll show my work for that. If I was trying to do 2x minus 3 times 2x minus 3, one way you can multiply binomials, or really any polynomial, is by using this box method. And so really the idea is I just need to fill in all these boxes. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times negative 3 is negative 6x. 2x times negative 3, again, it's negative 6x. Negative 3 times negative 3, positive 9. So I get that 2x minus 3 times 2x minus 3 is 4x squared minus 6x minus 6 more x plus 9. And so if you combine like terms, you get this 4x squared minus, I'll write it down here, 4x squared minus 12x plus 9. Anyways, that's a little aside during this problem. We squared both sides of the equation, so that made this 15 minus 7x. We got rid of this square root here. And then over here we had 2x minus 3 squared, which I've then expanded out. Turns out this is a lot easier to solve than what we started with. Still a little bit of work to do. Anytime you have an x squared term and an x term, the way you want to solve these equations is by getting all the terms on one side of the equation. So maybe I'll add 7x to both sides of the equation. Negative 12x plus 7x is negative 5x. And then I'll subtract 15 from both sides of the equation. 9 minus 15 is negative 6. And now what I have is this is 4x squared, is a quadratic equation over here equal to 0. And you want it to be equal to 0 because the strategy we're going to use to solve these is factoring. And it only helps to have something factored if it's equal to 0. Something times something equals 0 gives you a lot of information. Something times something equals 15 minus 7x, for example, doesn't give you any information. So we don't want to factor until we have this set equal to 0. To factor this thing, maybe it's time to switch colors. Let's factor 4x squared minus 5x minus 6. The strategy we've been using in this class is to find two numbers that multiply to negative 24, a times c here, and add to negative 5. Should I write that? I'm not going to write that. I'll say it. So find two numbers that multiply to negative 24 and add to negative 5. I think the two numbers you'll find are negative 8 and positive 3. And so what we can do is we replace this negative 5x with negative 8x and positive 3x. So those two answers we just found that were the answers to the question, what two numbers multiply to negative 26 and add to negative 5, were negative 8 and positive 3. So we can rewrite this as this, and the advantage to this second form is when we have four terms, we can factor by grouping. So look at this first group here and look for their greatest common factor. In this case, it's 4x. If we factor out a 4x from these first two terms, we're left with just an x over here and a minus 2 over here. And now my goal is to factor out something from these remaining two terms so that I'll be left with x minus 2. What that something is positive 3. And so now I have two terms, one over here and one over here, and they both have an x minus 2 in them. So I can factor out that x minus 2 And what I'm left with is 4x plus 3. So what I've done is I figured out that 4x squared minus 5x minus 6, this thing that's on the right-hand side of the equation here, is really just x minus 2 times 4x plus 3. So I can go back to my original equation and I can say, all right, so 0 is equal to x minus 2 times 4x plus 3. What I have here is something times something else equals 0. So what that tells me is either the first one, x minus 2, equals 0, or the second one, 4x plus 3, equals 0. The only way you can multiply two numbers together and get 0 is if one or the other is equal to 0. If I solve these two equations, I get x equals 2, or 4x equals negative 3, and therefore x equals negative 3/4. There's a catch. You're not done. These are two possible solutions. They're not necessarily two solutions. So what we have to do anytime you're working on one of these problems, we have a square root, you want to check your answer. So let's check them here. Let's check x equals 2 by plugging it back into the original equation. My original equation up here is square root of 15 minus 7x. So the square root of 15 minus 7x, which is equal to 2, plus 3 equals 2 times x, kind of question mark? Well, let's see. 15 minus, this is 14, would be 1. Is it true that the square root of 1 plus 3 is equal to 2 times 2, which is 4? Yeah, it looks good. 1 plus 3, that's 4. Looks like we have a solution. This guy over here is a solution. However, if we check x equals negative 3/4, I think we will not get a solution. The square root of 15 minus 7 times negative 3/4 plus 3 is equal to 2 times negative 3/4? Question mark. I think this is going to end up not working. Let's see here. What's the easiest way to do this? Well, I guess we just got to do it. Negative 7 times negative 3/4 is 21/4. So I have the square root of 15, which is 60/4, plus 21/4 plus 3. And what I want to know is that the same as negative 6/4, which I can reduce to negative 3/2? Well, in the square root over here, I got 81/4. You can kind of already see that this isn't going to work. The square root of 81/4 is 9/2, but you don't even need to figure that out. Just know it's a positive number. If you add 3 to a positive number, you certainly get a positive number. It's not going to be equal to negative 3/2. Nope, that's not going to work. Not a solution. So our only answer is x equals 2, which if you go back up here, Jared Jack, where's number 2? So another hint, the only solution that'll work is the number that Jarrett Jack currently wears for the Warriors. It's true, he wears number 2. It looks like I got the right answer. So that is the end of this perfect problem.